Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and welcome to Healing from Complex PTSD. My name's Linda. I'm a certified complex trauma professional and educator, and today we're going to talk about 10 reasons for hyposexuality after childhood trauma. So these are the things that we can begin to identify that are happening in our day-to-day life, knowing that they are components that are driving the hypersexuality, and we need to be willing to take a look at each of them and recognize when they're happening. That's the first step. So let's go from there. So the first one is dissociation, and dissociation can be one of the coping mechanisms that we use to survive complex trauma, and it can go as far as disconnecting us from our own bodily sensations and desires, and that includes sexual ones. Now, if we've also experienced sexual abuse in childhood, then it can absolutely shut us down to the stage where we're not connected, and we don't know it. So it's like we have to be willing to do this work internally to get back into our body, to have everything reconnect internally. So not just from our brain, but our body, get our sensory system back up and running. And a lot of this we don't know isn't happening because what's happening for us internally at the moment is our normal. We can recognize an avoidance of triggers. So sexual intimacy often involves emotional and physical closeness, which could act as triggers for traumatic memories. Hyposexuality may be a protective mechanism to avoid re-experiencing trauma. So rather than, if we're unaware of those triggers happening internally, we actually go into avoidance, and especially if we don't have language around what's happening for us internally, we want to avoid what's happening. Now, in relationship to the person we're with. However, there's also another side of it too, where if the person we're with isn't able to communicate emotionally, and let's face it, for multiple generations, we haven't had the language, for emotions, we haven't had the ability to sit down and talk through things as adults, and we're the first generation doing this. So to be able to sit down and say, okay, I want to recognize if I'm being triggered internally. Now, triggered doesn't mean, I'm having an emotional response, I'm triggered. Triggered means when our brain is engaging in survival response and we absolutely are out of the situation before we even know it. So we remove ourselves from engaging with that person in the relationship. It can feel really dark and dense in our stomach sometimes, like the gut area gets all churned up emotionally as well. So sit down and begin to build an awareness and account of what's happening for you emotionally, as well as what are the behaviours that are happening for you. And this can happen too from abandonment trauma, from, well, actually a number of things really, emotional neglect, all the things that happen in childhood in regards to complex trauma can drive that as well. Emotional safety. So we may not have experienced emotional safety in childhood. Again, generational, it's intergenerational. And I was actually talking about this a bit with my dad today, how it's been passed down in our family significantly. And the impact in relationships has been also very significant. Multiple generations of divorce, and I was hoping never to be divorced, and little did I know what the brain was carrying. And it was just, we can't see what's happening until we do this internal work. And so we keep choosing people who aren't healthy, even though we're doing the work to try and be healthy. So yeah, I've said, no more until I know that I'm recovered fully. Okay. So another area we can look at is a lack of trust. So it erodes our trust in others, which can make intimacy required for a sexual relationship feel fraught or dangerous. So in that case, you may find that you either go one of two ways. You can just go out and have fly-by-night, one-off sexual experiences that don't require you to be emotionally available, okay? Because when it comes down to sex, our body responds physically irrespective of what's happening for us emotionally, okay? And if you've experienced sexual abuse, then you'll understand that as well. We can, with regards to a lack of trust, we have to go through a process of building trust within ourselves around our ability to make decisions, okay? And self-trust, knowing that I know what's going to happen 5 steps after I make this decision. And if I don't know, then I know that I'm not going to go ahead with this decision until I've got evidence, information, and sat down and mulled it through from my life's perspective, what's going to be the outcome, and then I know what decision I can make. So building self-trust actually builds our ability to know whether or not we can trust other people. Low self-esteem, it can profoundly affect our self-image and self-worth, leading to feelings of undesirability or unworthiness of sexual attention or affection. And I think that's pretty straightforward. You're going to know if that's happening for you. Fear of rejection or abandonment. Our traumatic experiences in childhood often involve betrayal or abandonment, and making the prospect of a close relationship, which includes sexual intimacy, fear-inducing. So it's like our self-talk is very much centered around, I don't know that I can even go there, or what's this going to mean, or I'm not worthy of even engaging with someone, or they won't be interested in me, and on it goes. And it can be very internally crippling for us unless we begin to recognize that it's happening and begin to do our self-work on self-worth. Okay, just attachment issues. Complex trauma does affect our attachment styles, and it does lead to difficulties in forming healthy, intimate relationships, which in turn could contribute to hyposexuality. And I want to add to that as well, in regards to the attachment issues, that if you come into adulthood and you're with somebody who won't communicate, then it's like understanding that you're left with no choice but to keep moving on because they won't engage in healthy adult communication. Okay? Yes, we do have to work with healing our attachment wounds, and we also have to recognize that being with someone healthy doesn't mean being with someone without baggage. It means being with somebody who's doing their work too. Okay? Chronic stress and fatigue. The ongoing emotional toll of dealing with trauma can manifest as chronic stress or fatigue, which can have a direct impact on sexual desire. And I want to just add to that as well, it's toxic stress. So if you want to go and research about toxic stress as well and childhood trauma, that'll give you even more information. And from personal experience too, the complex trauma's impact on the brain actually hides not only some of the events that have happened and the impact in our life, it also hides from us the total impact of the toxic stress on our body until we get back into our body. And I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia earlier this year, and it impacts my legs. and severely, but I've learned to manage it as well. But it comes up when we've recovered significantly. I didn't realize it was there many years ago. Okay, because the impact on the brain with complex trauma is so vast that it hides so much from us until we're ready and able to manage the next thing that comes up. Medication side effects, and I'm sure a lot of us are aware that antidepressants for depression or anxiety can have side effects that include reduced sexual interest or performance. Definitely speak to your doctor. Do not sit there and think that there's no other options. If you need to change your medication and you're unsure about that, Google genetic testing for antidepressant medications. I haven't got the blog post up yet. It's half written, but there will be a blog post soon about genetic testing. Now, everyone I speak to has had genetic testing. I didn't. I was lucky that what I got worked for me. But everyone that I speak to that's had genetic testing for medication, because the genetic testing tells you what your body will work with and what it won't work with, what types of medications, it has worked for them and saved them enormous amounts of time. So please don't sit back and wait. Get proactive and have some genetic testing done. I know for a fact in America that if you get a referral from your doctor, it only costs about $300, I think. Double check, okay? Because I'm in Australia. I haven't heard of any of that kind of thing in Australia, and I'm not sure what the price is here either. Sorry about that. And we can also have co-occurring mental health conditions. So complex trauma often coincides with other mental health issues like depression, anxiety, or Ptsd, each of which can independently contribute to hyposexuality. And it's really, really important that you go and speak to somebody about getting a proper diagnosis. And if you can't get one, you keep looking for the medical professional who's going to listen to you, who knows how to validate what's happening for you, and won't take no for an answer as well. When I went to the doctor earlier this year, and my whole body was just in pain, and I was in tears because I was in agony. I kept saying to him, look, I don't know what this is. I am just in so much agony. And I sent him some information about how chronic illnesses are not psychologically driven. And it's written by a doctor. And he looked at it and he said, oh, wow, this is good. And he was sitting there, and that's when he went, have you heard of fibromyalgia? And I was like thinking, no, like, what? And he showed me a picture, and I went, oh my goodness, that's my body in agony. So when you have somebody who will listen to you, it makes the world of difference for your health as well. So these slides are downloaded on my Instagram profile as well as my Facebook business profile, if you need to take them individually and do some journaling around them, because whoever you're working with your complex trauma recovery will be able to help you work with these and help you to recover. Okay, thanks for listening in, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.